guys, what's up? Killjoy Jake here, and instead of having friends, I have the rest of this list, which I bet you are dying to hear. Today we are going to continue our Stephen King movies ranked list, and as you know, there will be no sequels in this list, and there will also be no movies that are just kinda based off of the works of Stephen King. These are direct adaptations that have happened throughout the years. I'm also including remakes and no TV movies. I recently found out that there's a Carrie TV movie, and that will not be put into this list either. I am gonna need you guys to like this video and subscribe though, and now let's finally get to the list. Coming in 21st place is Gerald's Game, and I give this movie major props for turning a really crappy Stephen King story, in fact one of his most disregarded novels probably of all time, into kind of a diamond in the rough. This movie has some really scary elements that really increase the story and just kind of make it way less boring than the book was. Coming in 20th place is Graveyard Shift. This is a personal fan favorite of mine because it's just so fun to watch. It's just a little monster movie about a giant rat coming up and eating people who work the graveyard shift. But overall, it's a very fun watch. Very cool monster effects as well in this one, but I don't recommend it if you are afraid of rats. Coming in 19th place is Christine, and this movie is a pretty well executed film from Stephen King that I feel like gets disregarded a lot of the time. Overall, great performances from everybody in this movie. Really cool concept about a car that can kill people. My car is trying to kill me and gas money, so I'm really not sure what's worse. Coming in 18th place is Silver Bullet. This is the biggest surprise of any of these movies on this list, in my opinion. I hadn't seen this movie until very recently, and it really was fantastic. There's some great moments of gore, and it gets disregarded a lot, and it doesn't really have that high of a score on anything. It's a very surprisingly fun werewolf movie that I highly recommend to anybody, and who can honestly get enough of Gary Busey? When he tries to plug that seashell into the TV, that just gets me every time. Coming in 17th place is It Chapter 2. Overall, I wanted to rank this movie way higher. I was just kind of disappointed by it. All it really is just CGI monsters running at the camera, being all crazy scary. I don't know, I just don't really find CGI as scary as practical effects. That's why this movie gets kind of a crappy ranking in this list. Coming in 16th place is Cujo. This movie scared me so bad as a kid that I am just not okay around big dogs ever for the rest of my life. I was delivering pizzas for a while, and when the dogs would run to the door, if they were big, I would literally run back to the car. I was like, nope. Overall though, a very fun movie. One of the most original scenes of horror probably ever, when the kid and the mom are in the car together, being like trying to stay inside, trying to stay away from the dog. That's absolutely freaky, and I don't think I've ever seen that in any other kind of horror movie. That isolation, that feeling of being stuck, and it's a dog. Like, I don't know, I've never seen that in another horror movie before. This movie gets major props for being as original as it is. Coming in 15th place is The Running Man, and now before you start writing angry comments toward me, let me explain myself. You gotta watch this movie again. It is very fun, very awesome. It's more of an action movie than it is a horror movie, but it's an awesome mid-80s Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, and I highly recommend that you go check this movie out. It's a lot of fun, and way better than I remember. I went back to this movie a couple weeks ago, and it is way better than I remember it. A forgotten tale by Richard Bachman that is only improved by Arnold's performance. That was the absolute worst Arnold Schwarzenegger impression maybe ever. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Nah, I can't do it. Coming in 14th place is Pet Sematary 2019. If you saw this movie or not, I'll tell you right now, it doesn't do exactly the same thing as the original movie, or as in the book. It changes stuff. And my biggest thing about remakes is don't remake a movie unless you're going to add something to it. Why even remake it? If you don't add something to it, if you don't bring something original to the table, you are literally just making this movie for money, from fans of the original. And that's pretty cheap. So I was really excited to see new stuff happen in this movie. Instead of Gage getting hit by the spoiler alert. Instead of Gage getting hit by the truck in this movie, the little daughter does, and it's pretty shocking because I did not see it coming. It's kind of a twist right in the middle of this movie, and then the ending, there's another big twist which I'm not going to reveal for the people who haven't seen it yet. It doesn't end quite the same, and it's honestly, in my opinion, a little more screwed up than the original. Coming in 13th place is Stand By Me. This movie is probably one of the most critically acclaimed in the entire list, probably somewhere behind The Green Mile and The Shawshank Redemption, but overall it is an absolutely fantastic film. I would rate this movie way higher, but this is a horror channel. I gotta put horror movies in the top 10. I mean, come on, what do you want from me? Coming in 12th place is Misery. This is probably one of the most famous Stephen King novels in this whole list as well. Probably the one that's made the most parodies of. Family Guy has made multiple parodies of Misery. This is a really interesting story about Stephen King's biggest fear. Coming in 11th place is Carrie the Original. Now, I think this movie is very underrated as well, and I put it so high because if there's anything you take away from this video, I want you to go back and I want you to watch the original Carrie again. That not only is there the scene at the end, the most infamous, actually a great infamous jump scare. I'm not talking about that, but that is also a pretty awesome scare. But also the scene at prom where she gets hit with the blood. It's an infamous scene in horror, and it really doesn't get appreciated much. If you go on my other channel, J&J Comedy, I do a parody of this with my character Trixie that I'm sure you will find very enjoyable. And finally, we have made it to the top 10. I am so excited to give you my top 10 list for this video, but really, one more time, guys, I need you to like this video and subscribe. If you want me guys to be putting out more videos every single week, I need more supporters, more subscribers, and a hell of a lot more likes, so let's get on it! Coming in 10th place is Firestarter. Honest to God, this probably is my favorite Stephen King movie. This was so hard to make this list, but I love Firestarter, and most people forget about it. In the 80s, 90s, this was probably one of the better Stephen King movies, and I feel like it's forgotten about now that we have this swarm of Stephen King movies that have come out just in the past 10 years. I mean, hell, 2019's almost over, and Stephen King still has 2 more movies coming out, Dr. Sleep and In the Tall Grass, which is a novella that he wrote with his son, which I haven't even heard of until I saw the trailer yesterday. Coming in 9th place is Creepshow 2. I love little skit horror movies. I could watch those all day long, and I don't know why. The VHS series, I could do like a whole month just on those movies. I love some of those little skits, like how you can pack like this whole story, this whole creepy original idea into this in these little tiny fragments of like 15-minute skits is so incredible to me. This movie does one of the best jobs of it maybe ever. I was really debating putting Creepshow 2 above the original Creepshow, but there are so many good ones in the first one as well. This one has my favorite skit of all of them though, called The Raft, and I highly recommend watching that movie just for that skit, honestly. Coming in 8th place, that you probably already figured out by now, is Creepshow, and I'll tell you what, you gotta watch both of these movies like back to back. They are very fun, very Halloween-y if you're in that kind of horror mood. My favorite little skit from this movie though is called The Crates, and it's right at the end, and it's one of my favorites. It's not quite as good as The Raft. These movies were both also directed by George A. Romero, and he also helped write some of the skits as well. Most of them are based off of old Stephen King shorts, which are fantastic, let me tell you. Very fun to watch, highly recommend it. Coming in 7th place is 1408. This is a fantastically made film based off of kind of a mediocre short story. The casting is absolutely fantastic, Sam Jackson and John Cusack, and overall, I can't find anything wrong with this movie. I don't know why I didn't place it higher, if I'm being totally honest with you. Coming in 6th place is the original Pet Sematary. Now, I loved the remake, don't get me wrong, but this is an absolute horror classic, as it should be regarded as. There will never be a better Gage, and he was just absolutely fantastic. The little kid in this movie, and of course, Herbert Munster. Dead is better. When I saw the trailer for the Pet Sematary remake, and he just goes, "Dead is better." Oh God, that made me, I was like, nope, not seeing this movie. It will never be better. It'll never be better than Dead is better. Dead is better. Dead is better. I can't stop saying it. Dead is better. Coming in 5th place is The Shawshank Redemption. Now, like I said, I'm a horror channel. I can't put this movie at number 1. It is clearly, out of all these movies though, one of the better made. Absolutely fantastic. A classic, of course, but it's a drama. It's not a horror movie. I can't put that in the top 3. I mean, what would that make me? That would not make me a horror channel. That would make me a movie channel. And this is horror movies we're talking about, people. Coming in 4th place is The Green Mile. A lot of people get Shawshank confused with this story, but I think that it is superb in a lot of ways. There's a supernatural element to it. It's simply a better story than Shawshank. People will disagree with me about that, but I think that it's just a better prison story altogether. together. It's really dark, there's some really silly moments. It's kind of a stew of drama, horror, comedy, and just some really heartfelt moments that just leave you in absolute tears. Like I said though, this is a horror channel, so we gotta make the top 3 all horror movies. So let's get to them. Coming in third place is It Chapter 1. This movie is absolutely fantastic. One of my favorite performances in a Stephen King movie is Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise. He's absolutely fantastic in this role, and I wish there would have been more of him instead of all this crappy CGI filler that they put in this movie. The whole scene in the Neibolt house is just all CGI monsters running around. I would have rather seen Bill Skarsgård just go ham on these kids, like for being all crazy, creepy, popping out of corners and stuff. I don't need all that CGI. But overall, if you can look past that, this is a fantastic and well-made horror movie. The kids are all fantastic, great cast of characters, led by children, so that's how you know when a movie's good. If a bunch of kids can make a fantastic horror movie that gets placed in the top 3 of all Stephen King movies ever. Coming in second place, and I literally just changed this, I was gonna put this one as number 1, but I had to change it last minute, is The Mist. This movie gets forgotten a lot, I'm not gonna lie. And people are gonna totally disagree, but The Mist has the best, out of all these movies, probably second best. That's why it comes in number 2. It uses the best mix of CGI and practical, and I think nowadays that is the best way to make a crazy monster movie. You gotta mix practical with CGI, and this movie does a fantastic job of it. Probably one of the best that has been done in the recent years. Overall, I love this movie. It's very enjoyable, and that ending is something that will leave you heartbroken probably for the rest of your life. Absolutely scary and horrifying. I saw this movie when I think I was about like 11 years old, and that ending still sticks with me. That's why this goes all the way up there for me. And finally, coming in first place, getting that gory gold, is The Shining. It is an absolute horror masterpiece, probably in the top 10 horror movies of all time for me personally. There are just so many creepy scenes of psychological horror, disturbing aspects in this film. And besides that, there's crazy scares that come out of nowhere. It's absolutely just this crazy mix of all things horror at the time, just brought together and made into an absolute masterpiece. Stanley Kubrick is one of my absolute favorite directors, and he nailed it with this movie. Couple fun facts about this movie: all the snow in this movie was actually salt. And now that hotel, to this day, nothing will grow on that property. That's pretty terrible for the environment. Come on, Stanley, you could have used some fake snow or something instead of salt. Also, another fun fact about this movie is that Stephen King absolutely hates it, because it is nothing like the book and it changes a lot. But overall, I think, in my personal opinion, they're very good changes, because most people regard this as an absolute masterpiece. Oh, and another fun fact: the sequel to it comes out this year, Dr. Sleep. If you couldn't tell that from the trailer though, of course. Thank you guys so much for watching my Stephen King ranked videos. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, I highly recommend that you watch it before you saw this video, and I don't think I said that at the beginning, so you're probably totally screwed right now. But if you could still like this video and subscribe, I would highly appreciate that. Also, follow me at KilljoyJake1 on Twitter, and don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.